oil prices so high?
Well, that's a complex question. And the short answer is that there's a huge global supply crunch going on, and it's not likely to get better anytime soon, if ever. There is just more and more demand, not only coming from places like China and India, which is what you hear a lot of in the press, but also even the United States. Our demand keeps going up and up and up, and there simply isn't enough supply in the system to take up that slack. And there's really no way to deal with this and simultaneously deal with the problem of climate change. I mean, the oil industry's answer to this problem is, gosh, we're addicted to oil. We have a real problem. What are we going to do? Well, we're going to find more oil. And that's what the oil industry always says. And it's just the wrong way to go about it. What we need is a very clear, strong signal from Congress that it's time to effect an energy transition. And phasing out these subsidies, getting really tough on the industry, beginning to send a very clear signal to investors, to the industry, et cetera, that the age of fossil fuels is coming to an end and that we really need to get serious about clean energy is what we need to do. And I would have liked to have seen more of that kind of discussion yesterday in the hearing.
Speaking of investors, how much money has the oil industry given to candidates, both at the congressional and the presidential level? How significant is that in determining policy?
We think it's pretty significant. If you look, if you go to our website, priceofoil.org, you can look up the full amounts that the presidential candidates and representatives have taken to date in this cycle and back to 2000. And in analyzing those numbers and looking at key votes on clean energy, we find that people who vote against clean energy tend to take about 4.5 times more money from the industry overall as those who vote for it. So if you're looking to try to get your representatives to vote for clean energy, to vote against the war in Iraq, one of the best ways to do it is to urge them to stop taking money from the oil industry.
Steve Kretzman of Oil Change International, one of the issues that the Congress members took on with these oil executives yesterday was the issue of tar sands. Explain what they are.
Tar sands are about the dirtiest form of oil you could imagine, the dirtiest form of energy you could imagine. They've recently been tagged with the label in Canada of the most destructive project on Earth. They are a major potential new source of oil in Canada, but it is so much more energy intensive and so much more destructive to the local environment that it is a very, very poor option for increasing supply in the United States. But there's a lot of money to be made, and so the industry is investing very heavily in this very dirty technology right now, and we're trying to do everything we can to slow that down. Congress actually did a wonderful thing back in December where they passed the energy bill in December 2007. It had a section in it that required the U.S. government to only buy fuel that didn't have a higher life cycle greenhouse gas emission content than conventional petroleum. That counts out tar sands. That counts out coal to liquids fuel. And so that's a very strong provision. Unfortunately, there was just a bill introduced a couple days ago to repeal that provision by 2 Texas Republicans. So we're going to have to fight to keep that in there, and we're going to have to do more to say that the answer to ending our oil addiction is not finding more and dirtier oil in Canada.
I was just reading a piece by Naomi Klein called Baghdad Burns, Calgary Booms, and how the techniques to get turning Alberta's crud into crude were so expensive it wasn't considered before. But after the invasion of Iraq, when the price of oil reached from $35 a barrel to now over $100 a barrel, it becomes a real issue. She said that year the United States Energy Information Administration so-called discovered oil in the tar sands. It announced Alberta, previously thought to have only 5 billion barrels of oil, was actually sitting on at least 174 billion so-called economically recoverable barrels. The next year, Canada overtook Saudi Arabia as the leading provider of foreign oil to the United States.
Yeah, that's right. And it's, if you look at the overall reserves base, Canada is potentially the largest source of oil on the planet. No one's got a real clear idea, but people know there are an awful lot of tar sands up there. You know, we're at a very important fork in the road on energy policy here. We can choose to encourage further destruction of Canada and further exploitation of the tar sands, and that pretty much dooms us to serious climate change and a warming world and all the various different horrible impacts that come with that. Or Congress can send a clear signal that it's time to move towards clean energy and away from those kind of dirty projects. And you know, the next several years are very important for making this choice, because we're seeing more and more and more investment move towards Canada in the absence of clear signals otherwise from Congress.
Steve Kretzmann, I thank you for being with us, Executive Director of Oil Change International. As we move to our last segment, U.S. government officials